and welcome back to
Friends with Cars, Formula One edition, F1 Talk.
F1 Talk. Welcome back, guys. It has been some time. We've actually missed 3 races since we've been back from the Netherlands Grand Prix. I don't think we've done a podcast since.
This is correct.
You know, life gets in the way, and we've had to miss a couple.
And also, I mean, life gets in the way, but also championships are won.
Yes.
Disappointing fashion, of course, but only because cheaters never prosper, as we will find out through this podcast. Cheaters do prosper.
Yeah. Well, I think the fact that we haven't talked about it because we haven't done a podcast in a while, let's just jump right into it. Max Verstappen winning his first championship.
First Formula One championship.
Yes.
He does have an FIA championship.
Yes, so it was gifted to him by the FIA last year. A lot of controversy, but I know we dislike him because of all the controversy and he's just a douche, but he definitely earned this one this year. The team gave him a good package. Do you disagree?
Well, he got a good package. I mean, I think he's probably looking at Christian Horner's package a little more than he should be. And they've been talking about that. Every time they go on the radio, it seems like they're just lovers who have been just enjoying the vacations a little too much. But no, yes, he does have a good car. Again, we probably shouldn't say he's got a good car. He's been a good driver. I think we've seen good drivers in great cars, and people cannot capitalize on it. So I can't say that he's winning because he's got a great car. He's got a good car, and of course, he's a good driver. So he's been doing it, and I think it's obvious when he does that, just because he wins by so much.
Yeah. Well, just look at the race today. He was in front of Lewis by 12 seconds, 13 seconds.
He ended up over 14 seconds.
14 seconds. Yeah, it's just Lewis is a really good driver. I don't want to say he got outclassed, but they just have a better package as far as the car.
Yeah, and I think from the beginning, I don't know if this is like a defense mechanism for Mercedes, but I think at the beginning of the season they said we're not going to be as fast. We're going to be the fastest car. It's going to be kind of like a rebuilding season, which is kind of weird for them to say that when they've been dominating so much. So I think they preempted the fact they probably knew they weren't going to be able to defeat or be the number one team. The fact that they haven't won a podium
this season,
like the first place podium this season, I would say that's got to be a little rough for them. But they have improved during the season.
Mm-hmm. They definitely have. In terms of improving, though, the one thing that we haven't talked about is the cheating scandal. Well, I don't know if it's a cheating scandal, but the cost cap breach.
Oh, it's a scandal.
Is it a scandal?
Listen, when
they got called out, it's been brought out.
They got called out, and listen, the way they got called out was probably the best for me, only because you have Toto hanging out with Mattia and coming out and pretty much blasting Red Bull for going over the cost cap. Now, we have no idea what it was. Once it comes out, allegedly it's because of catering. I know they have Grey Poupon mustard, but there's no such thing as Grey Poupon ketchup. It's just regular ketchup.
Yeah.
So I want to know what this catering is like. Now, I know for a fact that McLaren has a Michelin star chef cooking for all the drivers. I don't know if you knew this.
I did not.
They have a Michelin star chef cooking for the drivers, which is amazing. Maybe Red Bull has a Michelin star chef too, but to go over your salary cap they're saying like $1 million, that's a lot in food.
Yeah. Well, the article that I read, it says that there was a miscalculation in the way that they did their taxes. So they accounted for more money than they should have. Really, it was like $440,000, which is still a shit ton of food.
Oh, yeah. That's a lot of potatoes.
But still, so even though if that is correct, that they used that much money in catering, does it really translate to a benefit to the performance of the car? And in my opinion, I think so. If you're able to feed your crew well, that's obviously a factor in them producing better, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Whether it's design or the mechanics doing their stuff, but yeah, I think it was definitely a benefit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it was also, this was a meme, of course, but I don't know if it was on purpose or not. There was a commercial or a clip of Sergio getting a bill in a restaurant and then seeing the price and then looking around saying we're going to split this.
Yeah, we're splitting this.
Yeah, we're splitting this. I think that's hilarious. If it was because of catering, I think it's funny that happened. I do appreciate that. That was kind of funny. It's also a little bit of a slap in the face, like kind of being ridiculed by, okay, really, guys?
Yeah.
We went over on food and we're getting penalized. But like you said, $500,000 is $500,000.
Right.
I mean, how many front wings is that?
One at least.
One?
Yeah, it's one. Yeah, one. That's funny though. I don't think we've talked about this, but yeah, that was a Cash App commercial.
Yeah.
The first thing that came to my mind was, this makes Sergio look bad. Like, this dude's making way more money than the rest of them, and he's looking to his crew to split the tab. I'm like, it
was just timing, but the fact that
horrible
came out
timing.
right after the whole, they spent too much money on catering, it was pretty hilarious. But yes,
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. Well, so they got penalized $7 million.
$7 million and a 10% and time reduction
In the
tunnel, which I don't know what 10% reduction is in the tunnel. Is that like 10 minutes? Is that
That's a good question.
100 minutes?
Right.
I have to look into that, but I'm assuming 10% is probably not that much.
Yeah, it would be interesting if if the part of the penalty was, we're taking 10% time away from you guys, and we're gonna give it to the team that really should have won last year. So if they would have given it to,
We're just going to give that 10% to Mercedes.
yeah,
Or, listen, in regular life, snitches get stitches, right? But in Formula One, it's acceptable to snitch.
yeah,
And being that it was Ferrari and Mercedes who snitched, they should get that extra 5% each. They're like, hey, you know what?
that would
You're
be
right.
good actually. Yeah,
Thank you for snitching.
yeah. There was a thing that I read or heard that Helmut Marko, when all the controversy came out that Red Bull potentially went over the cost cap, Helmut Marko stated, like, we'd have to take a look into this. If that was the case, then, this is the first time I'm hearing it. Like, how did Toto Wolff and Mattia get the news before Red Bull did?
This is actually shocking for me. Helmut Marko's still alive?
I know, like,
Helmut Marko speaking? Oh, yeah. Red Bull news. Here's the thing, right? As soon as Mercedes and Ferrari are saying there's some shady stuff going on, the news are out. Someone's been hiding it.
Yeah.
So Red Bull already knew, and they're trying to pretend like it was no big deal. I think I read somewhere where Red Bull was saying, "This is ridiculous. I want an apology." And then he was saying, like, all the Red Bull the kids of the Red Bull people are getting bullied in school because of this. And it's like, are you kidding me?
Helmut Marko said that?
No, but this is Christian Horner.
Oh, Christian Horner.
So I'm just saying, Red Bull knew what they did, and they had it coming.
Yeah.
Listen, if you're not cheating, you're not trying, and there was a gamble they took, and they're going to blame it on the caterer, and that's fine. But if you get caught, you kind of accept it and be like, okay, fine, I'll pay it. I mean, they will.
Yeah. What type of savagery is that, though? That's funny, though. If that's actually happening, first of all, you have kids who are either fans of Red Bull or kids of people who are on the team, and they're getting made fun of because of the whole Red Bull controversy. I love that.
Hey, I'm here for it. Of course, this is probably not in the U.S.
I was going to say it only happens in the UK,
It's
probably.
probably in Europe. That's
Or
where
Europe.
This happening,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So if it was like football here,
Yeah.
American football, it
Yeah.
would probably be the same thing.
But you'd have to be careful with that, though.
Tom
'Cause if you're-
Brady's innocent.
if you make fun of a Raiders fan, like a kid who's a Raiders fan, he'll probably stab you.
Oh,
So you got to be careful with that. They're a little bit more classy in Europe. So
yeah, in Europe they're getting bullied, and over here they probably get shot or stabbed in a parking lot. It's true. Oh man, that's savage.
well, one of my comments or notes is George is a douche.
Yes, George Russell is a douche Bigelow,
Yeah.
and he needs to be stopped.
He's a mouthy douche. He's really pushy. He thinks that he's to the stature of Lewis, and he's almost demanding the team to give him a certain strategy. And granted, a driver should be able to provide some comment and dictate how his strategy is going, but the team and the engineers see more information than you, right?
Absolutely. But also, it's also the fact that he's the boy that cried wolf, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and I think I did see recently. I think I told you. Recently, I saw a little a video of it was a compilation of the times that he's crashed when it was his fault, and he blamed the other driver.
He pushed me off the
He
track.
pushed me off. You're like, dude, you're the one that's pushing.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, he crossed in front of me. He's like, no, you're the one that just T-boned him.
Perfect example is just last race at the United States Grand Prix where he T-boned Carlos.
That's right.
He went into the turn too hot, first turn actually of the race, and he cooked it into Carlos's
And
car.
the first thing he said is like, he cut me off. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, dude, you were behind him.
Fucking guy.
I know. You need to own that. If you do it, own it. I don't think Alonso would say he didn't do it. Alonso would just do it and be like, well, he got in my way. That's different.
Yeah.
Saying he got in my way is different than saying, I can't believe he tried to cut me off. Yeah, George is a douche. And he's got everything that's coming to him, which is coming.
But I think the team, I don't want to say they're getting tired of him, but I think the team feels somewhat the same. I know the relationships between engineers and the drivers are different. So the relationship that Bono and Lewis have, really close, right? I think they understand each other. But if you heard the radio of George today, he was providing input and saying, "Oh, we need to do this, and this." His engineer didn't say anything. Just ghosting. I'm like, yeah, I'll take your input, but I'm not going to entertain what you're telling me. I'm just going to listen to you and make you think that, yeah, you have input.
He's getting ghosted live
By his own team.
while the race is going on. Well, and listen, I think we've talked about this before, right? If you're not going for the gap, then you shouldn't be driving. I think Formula One drivers feel like they're the best driver on the track, even though, I mean, probably Latifi feels like he belongs, even though he doesn't, right? So, like, I kind of understand that concept. But the fact that George is so, he sounds like naggy on the radio.
Yes.
I don't think that's a good relationship to have with your engineer. And also, I mean, Hamilton's been there for a while. You kind of earn the right to do that shit. Someone like Alonso, you kind of earn the right to do that shit. And I mean, you're good. George, this is his first time George has a car that can win. And though he's been doing well during the season, I don't think he can get on the radio and say, this is what we need to do. Put me on this tires. You guys, it's like, dude.
Yeah, he's nagging and he's demanding.
Yeah. I mean, listen, even Charles Leclerc, when he gets old, they do ask him what they want to do for the strategy sometimes. But even then, Ferrari has a chance to fuck it up for him.
Do you think that's Toto's fault? I don't want to even say Mercedes' fault. Do you think that's Toto's fault for, in essence, putting the pussy on the pedestal? And I'm going to say pussy because George is a pussy.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think Toto put a lot on George. He saw a lot of talent in him at the early stages, and he does have talent, but I think he thinks that he is more important than what he is because Toto put him there.
I think you're right. Yes, I agree with you. I think George feels that because he got offered this position, I mean, it's kind of like he was at the worst team, and somehow they were like, we're going to pick you. Even though you're on the worst team, we're going to put you on the best team. I think he feels like he's entitled to that, and I think he feels like he's better than what he actually is. I think Mercedes right now is thinking we might have made a mistake.
Yeah,
I don't see.
But he's performing.
Listen, he's performing, and maybe this is too early. This is the first season with Mercedes. Maybe it's too early. I don't think he's gonna last at Mercedes the way they think he's gonna last. Hamilton's very clear that he doesn't feel like he's old enough to retire. I think Hamilton's going to race for 2 to 3 more years. And he's going to have to be with Mercedes. He's not going to go somewhere else. And I think the fact that that's going to be it, he's not going to stop pushing. I don't think Russell's going to get what he thought he was going to get, which become the number 1 driver to Lewis number 2 because Bottas was gone.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to happen.
Do you think that, because George and Lewis are really close in the drivers' championship. George is 3rd, Lewis is 4th. Is that right?
Yeah, Lewis, I think, is
fourth and 5th.
Lewis is, I think, 14 points behind Russell.
Yeah. With 2 races left in the season, do you think there's a possibility for Lewis to get ahead in the drivers' championship?
Absolutely. I think it's going to happen. I think Russell had a good run at the beginning. I think that now that Lewis is kind of in the groove of things, if you will. I mean, even today, he kept saying it wasn't the right tires, but he wasn't as pushy. I think he understands the concept, right?
Yeah.
He got second. He knows he was there. He knows he doesn't have the car to win, so he was second. He was fine. George kind of, I think he feels like he could have done better if he followed his strategy.
Yeah.
It may be, but for that reason, I think Lewis is going to be the cool-headed one, and I think he's going to come on top. And I think George, I hope the Sainz also beats George in the points with 2 races left, and George ends up in 5th.
I think Lewis would not have the same mentality he has right now if he would have lost 2 or 3 positions.
Absolutely.
I think he would be very upset. I think it just happened to work out for him. So knowing Lewis, I think he would complain about the tire strategy if he would have ended up in 4th. But fortunately enough for him, he ended up in 2nd.
I'm gonna agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you brought up the point of if you don't go for the gap, you're not a racing driver, right? Mm-hmm. Well, Daniel Ricciardo went for a turn. I don't even want to say a gap.
Yeah.
He went for a turn.
Yeah, there was no gap there.
There was no gap. Zero gap. Still a racing driver, at least for 2 more races.
Listen, if I knew, and I think if McLaren knew that given Ricciardo a 10-second penalty will make him drive better, produce, and pretty much erase that 10-second penalty.
Crazy.
I think they probably would have done that earlier. Yeah. And I think I joked during the race. They probably next race just get on the radio and tell him, hey, by the way, you got a 5-second penalty. Mm-hmm. And have him pull like Kimi, like, for what? Be like, don't tell him. Just tell him that he's got a 5 seconds.
Just drive.
And he'll just drive faster. I think it was a terrible move by him. I think it was unfair to Yuki. Yes, there was no gap. He literally just took him out of the race. I think he capitalized on it so well. Shockingly well. I don't know where that guy's been the whole season, but he showed you today why he should be driving. And Haas, you still have one open seat.
One open seat. Well, look at the series of events. When that incident took place and they gave him the 10-second penalty, he was behind Lando in like 9th place, I think, either 10th or 9th. From that point to the end of the race, he ended up at 7th, 11 and a half seconds in front of Ocon. That's absolutely wild. So he passed 3 positions and still got 10 seconds in front of Ocon.
Yeah.
Wild.
I think one thing Mercedes kept telling Russell and Hamilton was that you're fine, you're on the hard tires, they're going to drop, the mediums are going to drop off at the end of the race, and then you're going to catch up. That never happened.
Never happened.
And I want to say those drivers, I think everybody kind of followed that strategy, but Ricciardo took those medium tires 44 laps before he swapped them for the soft tires, and those soft tires were definitely producing.
Yeah.
So that was a great call.
Yeah, very good call. Well, you brought up the Haas seat. Mick Schumacher has not been confirmed to have re-signed with Haas. Kevin Magnussen has, which is great. Well, actually, I think you said that he was offered a multiple.
Yeah, he had a couple seasons when they signed him up.
Mick, nothing special about him. I think it's really unfortunate for him that his dad was one of the best, and you are unable to perform to that caliber that your dad was, and you're always going to be compared, and it sucks for him. But besides that, he still has not performed.
Yes.
Has not. Like, how do you get someone who was able to join very short actually, no, I'm talking about Kevin Magnussen. Kevin Magnussen got called up because they let go of Mazepin.
Mazepin.
Instantly started performing in the car. And then you have Mick Schumacher, who hasn't been able to do anything. He had a couple good races, got in the points, but nothing, there's very lackluster.
Yeah. And I think if of course I'm not Haas, but if I'm Haas and I'm looking at it, you can look at it a couple of ways, right? You have a name, it probably comes with sponsors, and you can probably do really well with that. But I want to say, if you have a driver that essentially you're taking a chance on him that he's going to do better, and he hasn't produced. Yes, he had a couple of good races, and people kind of went nuts because, again, the last name kind of carried him and gave him a little boost. But he hasn't been performing. You're not losing anything by just getting rid of him and getting another guy in there and see what they can do with it. Mm-hmm. You might have, you get a Giovinazzi in there, he'd probably do better than Mick, or do the same. Either way, you're not losing anything by giving someone else a chance that might give you more, because he's already had opportunity to do it and he hasn't done it.
Well, who do you think is a contender for that seat if they let go of Mick? They wouldn't. I don't think Daniel would.
I don't think Daniel would. It'd be too low for him to
go to Haas.
I think, which I don't know why. If you don't have a seat, I would say any seat is good, just to stay in it. Mm-hmm. I think if Ricciardo went to Haas, I think he can definitely match Magnussen's intensity on the track and do better. Definitely do better than Mick.
Yeah.
So it's kind of shocking that some drivers would refuse to go to an open seat. Maybe, and then again, maybe Haas doesn't even want him, right? They're like, no, we don't. First, we probably can't afford him. But 2, they're probably like, no, we don't want that. Also, actually, Ricciardo would lose a lot of money if he went to Haas, because
sponsorship. Even
though they'll pay him the difference of McLaren will have to pay him the difference of what he gets, it still wouldn't be enough. So
yeah,
he probably gets more with Mercedes. Anyway, I don't know who they would take. I don't even know who they have in the queue. But listen, Hulkenberg is a great driver. It's an experienced driver. He probably wouldn't expect more than a 1-year contract. If Haas is trying to look into rebuild and get a driver, I would say a Hulkenberg, a Giovinazzi will be a good option for that.
I would say Giovinazzi because one, Haas is powered by a Ferrari, so that relationship makes sense. And on top of that, the Hulkenberg and Magnussen don't have the best relationship on track. They've had previous scuffles in the past years. I don't think that relationship would work. Maybe it's different now, but I could see Giovinazzi being that replacement driver. The one thing I want to say is Red Bull's model of previously pulling up younger drivers to fill up their seats hasn't worked out for them, right?
Right.
And now they have Sergio Perez, who was a more seasoned driver, and he's doing well for the team. I think teams are going to see that as a benefit and probably go with that model. If there's someone who's got more experience, they'll probably get the more experienced driver.
Yeah, no,
Haas has been known to pick up the younger drivers, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a money thing. That's what they can afford. But I think if you have a driver that's been sitting on the sidelines that will probably welcome the opportunity to come back, kind of like a Magnussen, I think they have a better chance of doing that.
Yeah. It's really expensive to have a team in Formula One. Gene Haas puts a lot of his own money into the team. I don't know how much longer they're going to be able to do this. Like, how much is it worth it to you? Like, obviously, you guys aren't doing well. Just having your company name on the side of the car, I know that's a benefit, but for how much longer?
Yeah, and listen, that's probably the key to who are you going to get on that second seat because you need the money. So I know Mick brings a sponsorship in because of the name, but I think if you were to get a driver that's popular enough, I know that Williams is it Logan Sargent that went to Williams?
Oh yeah, Logan.
If he happens to get the points, I think that's a smart move only because yes, when you race in the U.S. 3 times, you're going to have a fan favorite that's going to be probably a local guy. So you have your American. I think for Haas, they don't have that. So I think they need to get somebody that they can actually boost up. And I don't think their merchandise sales are going to help them at all.
No.
So they need to find someone that either can produce, make the team better, or at least someone that's got a name that's going to sell those jerseys.
You bring up the merchandise sales. We just had the U.S. Grand Prix on U.S. soil in Texas. And you still see a very little amount of Haas gear.
Yeah.
I think I saw one in the sea of Mercedes, Ferrari. I even saw Williams hats.
I was going to say, I saw more Williams.
I saw more Williams than Haas.
Yeah. So, and Haas is the American team.
Yeah.
So, that's it. You just have to listen, you have Albon, who's a likable guy. Latifi is a throwaway driver, but Albon is a likable guy, and he does stuff for Williams.
Yeah.
So yeah, Haas just needs to figure it out. Magnussen's definitely not your he's a good driver, but he's not your rock star, your charismatic guy. Right. He's not your Ricciardo. He's not your Lewis. I think I saw Lewis in an interview with like Jimmy Kimmel, and Jimmy's like, "You might be one of the most fashionable drivers," and he said, "I am." So I mean, yeah, he's right.
Yeah, he is.
So what do the other teams have to offer? Of course, Daniel Ricciardo, super popular, but a super likable guy. I don't think the other teams have that. McLaren had it with Lando and Carlos. It was a great duo. I don't think the other teams have it.
Yeah. There's a reason why Daniel Ricciardo was the first episode of Drive to Survive season 1.
Oh, yeah.
Because he drew you in.
Oh, absolutely.
So any team, if he goes to another team that picks him up, he'll have that as a benefit. They'll have that as a benefit.
Listen, this guy doesn't have a seat for next season, and one of his sponsors already re-up with him for 3 more years.
His sponsors?
Yes.
Damn.
One of the sponsors that he has, one of the biggest ones, just re-up for 3 more years. Wow. And he doesn't even have a seat, and they know that.
Right.
And they just did it. So, yeah, that's a likable guy.
Yeah. They'll get a benefit in some other way, right?
Oh, yeah.
You brought up Latifi, and I think Latifi was my last note. It's always nice to have him on the grid because there's always something to talk about. It's not always good stuff. Actually, it's never good stuff.
It's never good stuff.
I do want to say that he did not lose any positions this race. He started 18th and ended 18th.
Yes.
Granted,
there was 2 cars that were out. So one can only wonder if no cars would have left the track, if Yuki and Alonso would have made it to the end. Would Latifi have lost 2 places?
I would say yes.
And I would also listen, I want to say I feel bad that this guy hasn't done well, but I like to watch the world burn. And the fact that he sucks so bad and he continues to do it, I think he just embraces it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's nothing. I think if you gave Latifi a Mercedes or a Red Bull car and put him on the track, he would still end up in last place somehow.
Yeah. Since we've been watching Formula One, he did something that I've seen the first time since we've been watching Formula One. It was at Japan. Granted, it was raining. It wasn't during the race. It was during free practice. He took the wrong turn. He took a turnout. I've never seen that before. And again, granted, maybe the visibility is not good, but still, your job is to go around a track that has the same configuration each year and take a car and just go through the right turns. And he missed a turn.
Yeah, it's the epitome of you have one job.
Job.
Listen, I know you're not going to win. I know you're not going to, finish top. I know you're going to finish last. All we need you to do is just, learn the track. And he didn't. Now, I want to say, though, I think he got points in Japan. Now, that was a shit show. Let's look it up. I think that was he got points recently. Now, that was a shit show. And after all that happened, I think we all kind of just forgot or just ignored the fact or just missed it that he actually got points. I think he got points.
He did. 9th. He got 2 points. Wow. Okay, yeah. I missed that one.
So the fact that he got points and nobody talked about it, nobody brought it up. Like this, you might be forgotten.
Yes.
If now Japan was wet and getting 9th place on a track when you suck the entire season and then you get 9th place and nobody celebrated, I guarantee you if it rains again, someone's going to be like, Latifi's a rain specialist. Kind of like Stroll was a rain specialist and then sucked at it.
Man.
But he did. He got points and nobody cared. You didn't know.
I didn't. No, I forgot. I actually, at the end of the race, when I probably still didn't even realize. Like, I didn't realize it. He's just a forgettable person.
Kind of like Max didn't realize he had won the championship in Japan because the FIA once again came in to the rescue on a race that was a shit show already and said, we're going to give half points. And then when he got to the cool down room, they're telling him he won. And he's like, did I? Did I really? Kind of like last year.
Yeah, but that's due to the Leclerc incident with Sergio Perez, though. The only reason they had said they were gonna do half points because it was only like 44 minutes of racing, but somehow they decided to do full points. So because they met a certain amount of laps, though, right?
Right. But it was like a last minute decision, so the drivers didn't even know what it is. Yes, Leclerc did get that penalty, but then again, that was the race where if you listen to the radios, everybody's asking, was that it? And they're like, yeah, that's it. And they're like, well, the car behind me is still pushing. And they're like, no, that's it. It's like, oh, are you sure?
Yeah.
Nobody knew it was
lack of communication for sure. Lack of communication for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the season's a little, I don't want to say it's boring, but, obviously the Drivers' Championship is decided. The Constructors' Championship is decided.
Yes.
Still 2 more races this season. There could be a lot that changes between the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and maybe even 5th drivers for the Drivers' Championships. Right. So I'm looking forward to it. We got Brazil next. Then we have Abu Dhabi. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, they should. Well, Brazil might have a rain. Usually they're dry, but they might have rain, which we all know the rain's a great equalizer. Now the Latifi gets points in the rain because he's a rain specialist. So it could be exciting. Again, my deep desire to Sergio gets 2nd place, and the Red Bull actually helps him get the 2nd place championship, and that Russell goes down as low as he can, so that he can get a little bit of a humble pie and understand that he's not Lewis.
Yep. Well, I have nothing else. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. I know it's been some time since we've done a podcast, so we're looking to talk with you guys again next podcast for Brazil.
We shall meet again.
Cheers.
Cheers.